If you've watched any of my previous videos, you've probably picked up that I'm quite fascinated by the current political climate. And I'm generally quite into politics anyway, probably inherited from my father, who's quite a political person himself, and I often have quite a lot of debates with him. But more importantly, I'm really, really fascinated by the link between the political and the personal. And in particular, at the moment, what fascinates me is the common inability for people both on a personal level and a political level to engage in nuanced thought. So we seem to be very keen, whether it's driven by social media or any other means, we seem to be driven more and more into extremes, into tribes, into opposing factions, with the inability to find middle ground and have adult, sensible discussion. And the main problem I see with that kind of behaviour is it ultimately limits us intellectually and stunts our abilities to progress on these issues. So, you know, our desire, our need to sit into opposing camps and refuse to think about other perspectives, to think about other opinions, ultimately stops that progression, stops the intellectual progress, you know, effectively stunts our ability to grow and advance those subjects. So while we may feel better about certain things, we feel more comfortable. Actually, if you think about it from a purely scientific view and going through the rigour of almost deliberately picking up opposing sides and trying to challenge that so that the best idea comes out, the inability to think in that way and be open to challenge, be open to being wrong effectively, kind of really limits our ability to progress and advance. And if I take an example, like right now, a hot topic, climate change, we seem to be driven into two kind of firm camps. One where, you know, climate change is completely man-made and it's all of our own doing, and, you know, if we don't change our ways, the world is doomed. And the other side that seems to be forming at the moment is completely the opposite, that climate change is a hoax and it's not man-made and it's all down to other factors, or it's a natural kind of progression of the Earth's temperature. And what's really striking about that at the moment is that there seems to be very little discussion about the fact that both of those might be true at the same time. That it could be that it's heavily driven by human beings on the planet, and it also could be heavily driven by natural factors or outside factors. But nobody seems to really want to sit in that middle ground and look at the fact that it could be both. And that got me really thinking about what that does for the discussion around narcissistic personality disorder. And the reason I was driven to make a video about this is I think I've put out something around, you know, over the last few months, about 35 videos. And, you know, the reason I make these videos is really just to share my experience and share my personal take, you know, as a non-expert, just to share my experience with other people of what I went through, what I've learned and what I'm still learning about this subject, in the hope that it might resonate with some people, it might help some people, it might challenge some thinking, and ultimately to help people go through and ultimately build a happier life, to resolve their toxic relationships, to learn from narcissists and what they can do and protect themselves in the future, but also to learn about ourselves and what we need to do to develop, with the ultimate aim that everyone becomes a stable person, a healthy person, a resilient person that's able to live a productive life without going through a repeat cycle. And one thing I've noticed is, as I put these videos out, you know, I get a good amount of feedback, which is a good thing. It's nice to have this debate. Like I said, I feel like I'm still on a learning curve myself, and although I would say I'm an expert in my own relationship, you know, and my own toxic relationship, and, you know, my experience of narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder and codependency on my own behalf, you know, it's an expert in my own relationship. I don't consider myself an expert in narcissistic personality disorder. So a lot of the point of these videos is as I go through what I find quite a fascinating subject myself, like this, you know, personality disorders, and particularly this one is fascinating to me. It's a learning curve, and as I put these videos out, I enjoy the debate that goes backwards and forwards. I've learned a lot from comments, I've learned a lot from watching other videos still, and you know, some of the feedback I've got, whether it's via email or through the comments section, has actually challenged my own thinking and made me really sort of think twice about some of my thoughts and opinions, and helped me form my opinion of NPD. And kind kind of on the flip side of that, some of the feedback that I receive, I wouldn't say is in the form of feedback or criticism. It's, you know, a lot of it seems to be, I wouldn't say a lot of it, some of it seems to be very angry and not really feedback or not really a challenge. It's an angry response. It's an emotional response that's either telling me I have no clue what I'm talking about, that, you know, I'm wrong, that I'm still in love with my ex, that I'm whatever it is. You know, it seems like a very angry response. There's no, when I try to engage, there doesn't seem to be any willingness to have any dialogue. It seems very similar to what's happening in the political environment of just, you're in that camp, I'm in this camp, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And for me, I understand that. I understand when I see it, I realise that it's likely to be people that are still stuck in a very angry, hurt phase of this. But ultimately, when I look at the comments and the feedback like that, I struggle to see the point other than it's a venting of anger. And like I said, that's understandable. But it got me thinking about the whole subject of nuance and how it relates to the recovery from narcissistic abuse. So I find myself in a position, and I think some of the angry comments I've had about some of my latest videos and, you know, my views towards my ex, you know, I see myself in a position now where I feel pretty much, I won't say 100% recovered. I've still got learning to do, and I've still got some recovery to do, and I need to adapt to a new life. So I feel like I am almost 100% over the abuse that's happened to me, and over, you know, I effectively forgiving my ex, you know, and I know that probably angers some people and probably triggers some people, and I apologize if it does. It's not my intention, but I don't hold any anger towards my ex anymore. And, you know, I've been pretty much effectively separated for a year, like physically separated, and divorced for almost, like legally divorced for almost 6 months. But I feel like I'm in a totally separate life, and I'm in a position where I'm able to look back and I'm still interested in the behavior or the drives of the behavior that pushed her to do what she did. But I don't feel any emotion. I feel like I'm watching it as an outside observer now. And I guess what as I look back at those comments and that feedback of people saying, like, you know, I'm either still in love or I just don't understand it, I think they're missing the point. You know, what I'm trying to look at the moment is to investigate that middle ground. You know, I receive comments along the lines of, all narcissists are evil, they're just evil people, you know, they're there to hurt people, you know, and while I understand that, I don't believe it. You know, I understand that kind of reaction, and again, it comes down to that nuanced thought. You know, it's quite possible, and when I look at my own relationship, I firmly believe that it's extremely possible that my ex did and was capable of some very horrible, some very damaging, some very nasty things. But I can't deny that she also had good qualities as well, and was very kind in some ways. And actually, you know, when I look at her love for our animals that we had together, you know, I can't deny that you know, she cared for our animals, whether, you know, she was 100% there all the time. Like, I know that she felt love and compassion for our animals together, like they were children, as they were for both of us. So it's disingenuous for me to look at the situation and label it, although it might be easier for me to label it as she's just a bad person, she was never a good person, and she's just full of evil. I don't think it's the truth. And not only that, I think taking that kind of attitude prevents deeper understanding of the condition. That's ultimately what I'm seeking to do still, you know, not in the case for her. Like I said, it's an intellectual fascination. Having spent so much of my life being with someone with this condition and have it affect my life so much, you can't help but kind of be driven to dig deeper. It feels like it's taken so much of your life. And I don't mean taken up, but it's been such a big part of your life that to drop it and not become almost an expert in it, not to really understand it, would feel like a bit of a waste. And I'm genuinely intellectually fascinated by that condition and other psychological conditions, and I feel an intellectual need to dig deeper and truly understand them for my own curiosity, and also hopefully to help other people who may be going through the same thing. But to do that requires that nuanced thinking. You know, I can't sit there and think someone's all good or someone's all bad. You know, I believe life's more complicated than that. And my genuine belief, I mean, not being a religious person at all, I don't believe in good and evil. I don't believe, you know, I think, again, part of the problems we're seeing in society at the moment is needing, for our own sake, for our own inability to cope with complex subjects or emotions, a need to see things in that kind of binary way. You know, like I said, whether it's climate change, whether it's the political environment, you know, is it possible for climate change to be man-made and non-man-made? Is it possible for Donald Trump, for example, to be a horrible person but also be potentially good for the US? You know, is it possible for, in the UK here, for, you know, someone to be pro-controlled immigration but not racist? You know, it seems like we've fallen into this need to see things in a binary way, and it's ultimately going to limit our ability to progress and drive people apart. And so I guess my message to people watching this video, if you're having strong anger reactions to the videos, and you're, you know, or any videos, it's not just mine, it could be any other videos out there, it's ask yourself if you're limiting your ability to take in information purely due to... So I guess my message and advice and the point of this video is that if you're watching videos like mine and it's provoking anger or an emotional reaction, or other people's videos, you know, whether you agree with them or not, whether you find them insightful or not, if you're limiting your ability to take in that information purely based on an emotional reaction, I'd question whether that's in a state you want to be. You know, ultimately it's detrimental to ourselves to not be able to absorb information, whether it's slightly painful to absorb it or not. You know, the ability to accumulate, to absorb information and pick and choose what we want to do with that information is to our own benefit. You know, limiting and shutting down the doors to information ultimately limits our own ability to learn and understand. So like I said, you don't have to agree with everything, you don't have to change your mind, but restricting your access to information to outside sources is only detrimental to yourself. You know, it's kind of like limiting your exposure to other cultures, to other people in the world, like building a wall around your kind of country and not ever exposing yourself. You know, ultimately your ability to grow, your ability to change and learn will be diminished. You end up like a North Korea, where you end up, you know, isolated and the rest of the world has progressed and you're still living in like the 1960s. And I guess the way I would try to analogize it, as I always like to do, is it's kind of like being sensitive to sunlight, being sensitive to outside light, and you know, feeling slight emotional reactions because the light's too bright for you. And one way to solve that might be to put on sunglasses that change everything to black and white because you can't take the color. And sure, you put the sunglasses on and suddenly, you know, the emotional stress has gone, but suddenly you're only seeing black and white, you're seeing binary colors. And you could do that for the rest of your life, but the thing you have to remember is that all that color information is still out there. The world is still in full color, but you're restricting your ability to see it. While everyone else in the world, everyone around you, is seeing more than you are. They're able to recognize more, they're able to take in more information. They're seeing the full spectrum of color and the full beauty of the world, while you're limiting yourself. So actually you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage compared to everyone else out there. And really the right approach, even if that's a temporary measure, the right approach is to get to a point where you can manage to take all that information in, so that you're, you know, in line with someone, you're in line with the rest of the world, in seeing all the information that other people are seeing, so that you're not falling behind. And that may take some time, but it's an effort that's worth going to, because ultimately it's to your individual detriment to not be able to absorb that information and process it correctly, just like everyone else is doing. So in my situation, like I said, I find myself in the position where I can look dispassionately back at my relationship, back at what happened. I can see my ex, you know, I have the ability to forgive her, but not trust her. You know, I don't carry anger towards what happened. I don't wish her badly. You know, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about her. You know, and at the same time, I don't trust her. I'm rational, but it's not a distrust out of anger. It's a very rational distrust. You know, if I ever see her again, or if, when I saw her recently, I don't trust her in my house. And I've got good reason not to trust her, but it's not an emotional, angry distrust. It's a very rational, I know what this person's behavior can be. I'm able to have that contact. I'm able to not go no contact, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm completely able and willing to terminate that at any point. I'm able to never speak to her again if that's what I need to do. And again, that's not an emotional reaction. That's not a kind of screw you reaction. That's a oh, this may be the reality, that this situation changes, and I just need to break contact forever. And again, I feel able to do that very dispassionately. And that for me feels like I'm in a position where I'm pretty much healed. I'm able to engage this person in a new way, in a totally different relationship without carrying anger myself. So to summarize, my advice to anyone out there is have a look at how you're responding to videos like this. And this isn't a don't criticize me. Please feel free to. Please challenge me. Please help me learn. But if you're taking what I'm saying and getting angry about it and shutting it down, you should question realistically whether you feel like you're in a good place. And if you're not, and you're open about not being in a good place, there's nothing wrong with that. There is a process to go through, and anger and resentment is a strong part of that and an essential part of that. But realize, in order to live a healthy, happy life and a well-balanced life, you need to get into a position where you're kind of invincible, where you're able to take emotional subjects, to take emotional information and process it without it causing that reaction to you. And hopefully these videos can help people go through that. And like I said, if you have criticism, then please send it my way. Please put it in the comment section. I actually do enjoy the debates, and I do enjoy the challenges. And like I said, I'm not an expert in narcissistic personality disorder or other personality disorders. I'm an expert in my relationship and my experience at the receiving end of narcissistic abuse. And all I'm trying to do with these videos is share that experience with the view that it may help someone else through. And my opinions aren't necessarily correct. They're my thoughts at the time, and my thoughts may change. And the idea is to keep that discussion going. And I think in order to help people progress, we need to be able to have those nuanced discussions, whether it's around narcissistic personality disorder or politics. And I will try to keep politics off of this channel as much as possible, although I do get caught in liking to dabble every now and then.